I'm going to work through 15 and 16 quickly so you can see whether your thinking is the same as mine on how to answer these questions. 15, what change needs to be made to sentence 20? And mark off sentence 20 so I can focus on it. I'm going to read for apostrophes and capital letters and see if anything jumps out. It's very hard work, he says, but running about between the camera and the drawing keeps me warm. So first off, I have this IT apostrophe S. I can see that it doesn't possess anything, but I'm going to check whether expanding it into two words still sounds right. So it is very hard work, he says. That sounds right to me, so there's not a problem with the IT apostrophe S. The other question is this capital B right here, but I'm not sure what I want to do with that one. It jumps out as a capital, but it doesn't jump out as being wrong all by itself. So I'm going to go through my answer choices and see what I can confirm and eliminate. So change IT apostrophe S to ITS. We just tested that one right up here. And I know that IT apostrophe S is right. So I can eliminate A because changing it would make it incorrect. Delete the comma after work. Let's see what happens if I do that. It's very hard work, he says, but running about between the camera and the drawing keeps me warm. I know in this case that if I have a split quote like this, and I have a phrase that helps to introduce or give context to the quote, that I do need to have a comma before the quote's end. So I'm not going to delete the comma after work. C, delete the comma after says. Much like deleting the comma after work, if I'm transitioning from in a quote to outside the quote back into the quote, I need to have that comma that indicates the transition is occurring. So I'm not going to delete that one. I can eliminate C, which gives me D, change capital but to lowercase but. I mentioned earlier that that capital letter jumped out at me, but I wasn't sure yet whether anything was wrong. So let's see why we'd want to make this change. It's very hard work, he says, but running about between the camera and drawing keeps me warm. Well, what I know is that this ending quote by itself isn't going to work, that it's part of a larger quote, and that larger quote starts here. It's very hard work. So I want you to imagine that we take out he says and we treat this as one sentence. It's very hard work, comma, but running about between the camera and the drawing keeps me warm. So if that were one long compound sentence, we would know that we would need the B to be lowercase, that fanboys B, and we would need to have that comma before it. So I can be confident that 15S, the answer is D, change capital but to lowercase but. So now we'll look at 16 quickly, and then you can see whether your answers are matching mine. What change should be made to sentence 21? So I'm going to mark off 21 and see if anything jumps out in apostrophes or capitals. Although the results are short-lived and the work itself is difficult, Beaver remains determined to bring his art to the street. So I don't see anything that jumps out at me, so I'm going to go item by item and make a decision. F, change results with no apostrophe to results with an apostrophe. Let's see what happens if I do that. Although the results are short-lived. So first question is, does results own anything? And the answer is no. The word result does not own R. That doesn't make sense. So next I'm going to expand it, take it out of a contracted form and see whether result is makes sense. Although the result is R short-lived, that does not work. And of course I couldn't get rid of R. So adding an apostrophe to results would just make things worse. That is not my answer. G, insert a comma after difficult. Let's see what happens if we do that. Although the results are short-lived and the work itself is difficult, Beaver remains determined to bring his art to the street. So I'm looking here for a fanboy conjunction that comes after when I have a comma in the middle of a sentence like this, or I'm looking at the first word to see whether I have a subordinating conjunction. And in this case I do. Although the results are short-lived and the work itself is difficult, comma, Beaver remains determined. This is a dependent clause in my complex sentence, so I need to have this comma, and I'm pretty confident that G is my answer. but I am going to check my other two just to eliminate them, and I can be 100% sure. So H changed determined with one N to determined with two. And of course, you know by now, we look at the dictionary and we see that determined with two N's is not in the dictionary. That's not enough, though. We do need to check the other one just to make sure that both of them are there and that the test writers didn't make a mistake. And we'll see that determined with one N is in the dictionary. So we would not make that change because that would be taking a correct word and making it incorrect. Option J, change his to their. Let's see what happens if we do that. Although the results are short-lived and the work itself was difficult, Beaver remains determined to bring his art. If I change that to their, then I'm saying there's more than one person making the art. And in that very next line, I see my art. And there's other evidence throughout the passage that says there's only one person. So I don't want to change his to their because that would violate the principle of having your pronouns and antecedents agree in number. So I can be 100% confident that G is the answer.